Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. It's your man Got 'em Dots back with another episode of the Audible. Hope everybody has had a very good day. I know that I have. Looking forward to the weekend as usual. Looking to the weekend as usual. All right. We're gonna continue breaking down the AFC North, one of the better divisions in football. When you really start breaking down these rosters and breaking down some of the stuff that's going on with this division, one of the better divisions. The AFC North traditionally has one of the better divisions. We kind of get into a little bit of housekeeping before we kind of get the show rolling. I know I missed yesterday. Of course, I had some other stuff, but yeah, working on a topic maybe for Freestyle Friday. We will be wrapping up the AFC North tomorrow with the Cincinnati Bengals. I've already kind of given, spoiler alert, I've already kind of given my pick for this division, but it's going to be a lot closer than you think. And like I said, when you look at these teams, you really start breaking down the roster. It's a lot to like. How you doing, Dr. Nikki? It's a lot to like with each of these franchises. I think all these franchises, for the most part, are headed in a very positive direction. And this division typically, with the exception of the Cleveland Browns, some years it's typically one of the better divisions in football. But let's kind of get into it and break it down. If you were following the show last year on the other channel, Pittsburgh was my dark horse pick last year. They were my dark horse pick last year. I thought they had an opportunity to really push for one of that final playoff spots, one of the wild card positions. And I'm kind of on the fence with that again this year. I think we're going to see much more productivity from the offense. The defense, we'll see. But I'm not going to pick Pittsburgh to make the playoffs. It's kind of like one of my fringe playoff teams. I see them fighting for the 6-7 seed. Typically because that's a Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin, known for having winning records. Last year was aberration. We call that. You had a rookie quarterback, had some injuries in some very key positions, and the season didn't end off like I thought it would. Like I said, I think this team is going to be much more improved this season. Now, will I put them into the playoffs? No. But will I make them one of my fringe teams, one of the dark horse pick? Yeah. And what we'll do next Friday, I'll kind of give. We'll do like a wrap up show, go over all my picks for the division, who I got, really making a run for, and I have what I'm gonna call two dark horse picks for each conference. I think there's two teams in particular for each conference that I think people need to be kind of have on their radar, and really kind of keep eye on. And we'll see how it kind of goes out. The season will be kicking off real soon. College football kicks off this weekend. I may touch on that a little bit tomorrow. I may touch on a little bit of that tomorrow. I got to look at the schedule. I don't know Notre Dame's on the slate for this weekend, but I don't know who they're playing. But I got to check the schedule. All right. So like anyway. As we break down these teams, we always start with the most important position on the field. In Pittsburgh, this is where you kind of fall behind everybody else in the division. Everybody else in the division when we're talking about the North, we're talking about Lamar Jackson, we're talking about Joe Burrow, we're talking about Deshaun Watson. Kenny Pickett is clearly the worst quarterback in this division, and that's not a slight to Kenny Pickett. I think Kenny Pickett is going to be much more improved in his second season. He had to go out there and get his lumps. I don't have no issue with that. But he's clearly the worst quarterback in this division. And, a lot of, let's be honest, a lot of other quarterbacks will be the worst in this division also. It's a lot of talent at the quarterback position. They just don't have the top guy. But they do have Kenny Pickett coming into a second season. I think he's fully entrenched in as the starter. Like I said, he was okay. I wasn't too high on him coming out of college. I thought he was okay. And I think he'll be okay. I like some of the weapons that he has, and we'll kind of talk about those, some of the changes that they made, some of the guys that they brought in. But I think Kenny Pickett is going to be a much more improved quarterback in the second season under the tutelage of a Mike Tomlin team. One thing I could say about a Mike Tomlin football team is steady. They don't really have guys that rock the boat outside of IE and Antonio Brown. And the franchise is a stable enough franchise where I think Kenny Pickett is in a nurturing environment, and he's going to need it. He is going to need it. If Pittsburgh is to get back into the status of being a perennial AFC contender, perennial Super Bowl contender, Kenny Pickett's going to have to come along very dramatically over the next couple of seasons. I'm not going to put too much pressure on Kenny Pickett this first season, the first full season of starting. I'm not going to put that much pressure on him, but I think he'll be much improved, much improved. And this is a young team. I think a lot of people kind of miss that because we're so used to Mike Tomlin as being successful for whatever guys he has out there. Or you're talking about a lot of young players. A lot of young players moved on from the Big Ben era. It's a lot of young players. Still some veterans on this team, some key veterans on this team, but it was a fairly young team where we're talking about quarterback was young, running backs young, wide receivers are young, offensive line. They made some changes, and we'll talk about that. Young, tight end, young. I mean, it's young pieces that is going to get better in this system. Now, moving on from Kenny Pickett, you do still have Mitchell Trubisky there. Suitable enough backup. Can start. I know he started first part of the season last year, and then for the team with Kenny Pickett. Trubisky, he's pretty mobile for a quarterback. He's not Lamar Jackson, but who is? It's a nice safety net to have if you're Mike Tomlin. If Kenny Pickett comes out there and struggles, and how he's been looking in the preseason, I don't see that really happening, especially at the start of the season. If Kenny Pickett, gets hurt or, just falls off the wagon, like I said, I've been watching him in the preseason. He's looked very, very, very good. Look more comfortable in the offense this second year. But Trubisky is a nice backup. It's a nice backup. And it helps when you have a very good running back room. Najee Harris is obviously running back one, kind of a bell cow type running back. It does have some pass catching ability out of the backfield. You also have the backup Jaylen Warren, who's more of a downhill one cut type of running back. So Pittsburgh is known for defense and running the ball, and I think they're going to be able to run the ball because their offensive line is very much improved. Now, I'm not going to glorify them and say they're one of the best in the division or even the best in the conference, but it's a lot to like. But you look at the offensive line, some of the pieces they brought in, some of the depth that they added. I think that was a real big problem with them last season. Guy was getting hurt on the offensive line, so you had to address it in some form or fashion. But I like the running back room of Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren. I'm not sure who's going to be running back 3. Doesn't really matter because Najee Harris is clearly the number one. He's more of the bell cow type running back. So I think the running game will be very productive. What really kind of gets me excited for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we're talking about the offense, I like the receiving group that they have. When I'm talking about receiving group, I'm also, I'm talking about wide receivers and tight ends. It is a light, is a lot to love. It's a lot to love when you look at those pieces. The nigga says I like to see him coach another team. That ain't happening. That ain't happening. When Tomlin decides to retire, that's when he'll move on. I think Tomlin maybe have about 5 or 6 more seasons in him, and I think he could probably see him transitioning into broadcasting. But nah, I don't see him going to any other organization. The Pittsburgh ownership, the Rooney family has been very patient with Tomlin at times. Has been very has created a very comfortable work environment. One thing you can say about Pittsburgh when it comes to their head coaches, they don't really have to be looking over their shoulder. You think of Mike Tomlin has been there over a decade. Bill Cowher was there over a decade. This is an organization that allows the head coach to kind of work through some of the growing pains of sometimes the season is just a lost cause. I mean, injuries happen. Plays don't go your way. Sometimes the season just a lost cause. But think about a Mike Tomlin team, they're going to play hard. They're going to play hard. But back to the offense. It is a lot to like with this receiving group. I'm telling you. I like Deontay Johnson. He's penciled in as wide receiver 1, but in my opinion, George Pickens is the wide receiver 1. Pickens reminds me as far as his catch radius, as far as his ability to catch the football. He reminds me of young Odell, like the ability to snatched the ball out of places. The ball, first of all, shouldn't even be in, but he's known for making difficult catches. Now, I would like to see him get better with the route running in his second season, but I think the combination of Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, they also traded for Allen Robinson. We'll see what he still has left. You have Calvin Austin, Miles Boykin kind of occupying the slot roles. I like the wide receiver group because they're young. Deontay Johnson is young. George Pickens is young. Allen Robinson is still fairly young. Still fairly young. I mean, just age-wise anyway. But I like the combination of Johnson and Pickens. And then when you look at the tight end room, I like Pat Freiermuth, but the guy that's like really on my radar. Had a very good combine, tested very well athletically, in my opinion. Thought he would have got drafted a little bit sooner than he did. It was Darnell Washington. If you didn't watch Darnell Washington in college, go check him out. Look him up on YouTube. Check out the highlights. Very, very, very good pass catching tight end. You compare him, you line him up with Pat Freiermuth and the two tight end set, the big sets. Both guys can block a little bit, even though Freiermuth is a little bit better than Washington, but both guys can catch the ball. Pat Freiermuth kind of blew up on the scene last year, and the tight end is a quarterback safety valve. It's a quarterback safety valve. This is the most easiest read because typically they're not running go routes, they're not running zig routes, they're running, they're trying to find a soft spot in the zone. But yeah, I like the wide receiving group for the Pittsburgh Steelers this upcoming season. I think keep an eye out on George Pickens. Keep an eye out on George Pickens. If they can get him the ball, he's going to be making some highlight reel plays. George Pickens is a wide receiver on my watch list. I like them coming out of Georgia. George Pickens is my guy. Is my guy. I'm not going to put him in the same category as a Jamar Chase, as those upper echelon receivers, but give him a little bit of time. Give him a little bit of time, and I think you'll see your return on your dollar with George Pickens. How you doing, Getty girl? Listening in while working. Okay, that's always fine, man. You know me. Get in and get out. Now, when I'm breaking down these teams, I like to talk about the quarterback positions as being the most important. But when it comes to talking about winning football, you have to have good trench play. And I think when you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, traditionally, they typically have very good trench play. I'm talking about offensive line and defensive line. When you look at the offensive line, it's a couple pieces, that I can see the team reaching for an upgrade on in the next couple of seasons. As far as like the draft, I think maybe left guard might be a position they might be looking to address. They did bring in some guys, but they're very well coached, so I don't expect too much trouble. I don't think Kenny Pickett will be running for his life. Najee Harris will still be able to find running lanes with this. It's a guy, they got a rookie starting the left tackle, but he happens to be a very good rookie. If you watch the University of Georgia last year, Roger Jones, SEC play. If you watched, Georgia, Alabama had a very good game. Wasn't getting blown up by Will Anderson. Very good game. Very good game. Wow, I'm tripping. Yeah. Get a sip real quick. Roger Jones, left tackle, rookie left tackle. I like him. Offensive line is okay. I think this might be the only limitation you have with the team as far as the offensive side of the ball. Now we move to the defensive side of the ball. It is a lot to like, but if certain things come together, some things have to kind of come together for this defense to really take off. Now, I have no issue with TJ Watt on the outside, reigning defensive player of the year. It goes without saying. I like the other guy they have on the opposite side of the edge from him, and Alex Highsmith just got a new contract this past all season. Very good pass rusher. And Pittsburgh is known for kind of getting after the quarterback. Now with the defensive tackles, you still have Cameron Hayward in the house. You have Larry Ogunjobi. I like DeMarvin Leal. I know he didn't get too much burn last year as a young player, but I like him. I like his athletic skill set. So the defensive tackle position, Pittsburgh traditionally runs a 3-4. So you're not really asking your defensive linemen to really kind of get after, but they do have a little pass rush ability. Cameron Hayward can get some penetration on the inside at DT. Ogunjobi's okay as far as run defense is going, but this team lives and breathes as TJ Watt goes. I mean, let's keep it about when he was out last year, the defense kind of struggled. They got exposed. It's not a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball, but they're getting there. They address some things in free agency. They address some things with the draft. I do like one of the draft picks. We'll kind of be talking about him in a minute as we look at the secondary. But linebacker core, you brought in Cole Holcomb, formerly of the Commanders. I want to say the Redskins so bad, but formerly of the Commanders. Tanner Muse, another former Commander. I mean, they're okay. It's okay. They don't really, the linebacker core really don't jump off to me. Those guys are more of coverage type linebackers. Those guys I just mentioned. But this defense is known about blitzing. You might see safety blitzes, corner blitzes, traditionally linebacker blitz. But when you have a TJ Watt, you don't have to blitz as heavy as you would normally do. I think the combination, like I said, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith on the outside created a very good pass rush for Pittsburgh, kept them in a lot of games last year. And I think this defense is going to keep them in a lot of games, but it's not as talented. It's not as talented at the linebacker position. I think linebacker position is probably the weakest position on this defense. They can be had if you can kind of neutralize Watt, Highsmith, even though he had a very good year with the sack totals. I mean, you're only as good as the guy opposite of you. You're only as good as the guy. I mean, you have a superstar player, a defensive player of the year, and a TJ Watt. It makes life a little bit easier. I'm curious to see this Highsmith progress this upcoming season. Does he progress this upcoming season? Now, when you look at the secondary, they did lose their best cover corner last year. He went to the Giants, Cam Sutton, but you bring in Patrick Peterson, who I think still has a little bit left in the tank. And Pittsburgh just has a way of, drawing out cornerbacks' careers, or putting them in a position to be successful despite their quote unquote physical limitations, i.e., Joe Hayden. But Patrick Peterson is kind of penciled in right now as cornerback one, but it is a cornerback that they drafted that I was very, 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 very high on. And that was Joey Porter Jr., son of the former Pittsburgh Steelers great Joey Porter. He's a very physical type cornerback. If you watched any of Penn State's games last year, if you caught any of the Big Ten, Joey Porter, very physical corner out there. Now he will get in trouble, being a little too handsy. On occasion he does gamble a little bit, but I like the mentality. I like the skill set of Joey Porter. I could see him at some point in this season kind of being penciled in as cornerback one. Now the rest of the cornerback room, I mean, Levi Wallace is a pretty good corner. Akilo Witherspoon is a pretty good corner. You do have health issues with both of those guys. Traditionally, Witherspoon, I would say, were formerly of the 49ers. Levi Wallace, I think, used to play for Buffalo. Still talented. I mean, it's a decent cornerback room. The chess piece they have on that back end, you have Minkah Fitzpatrick, who can line up in the slot, who can line up a sub linebacker. If you task him with being on the outside of the corner, he can do that in spots, but is more of a gadget, movable piece on the field as far as like your defense is concerned. I like Minkah Fitzpatrick. I'm not sure about Keanu Neal. I do like DeMonte Casey, who they got back there in the free agency. I'm not sure about Keanu Neal, but Minkah Fitzpatrick is a piece you can kind of move around. He can kind of shore up some of the deficiencies in that secondary. Patrick Peterson can be beat. I think he had a pretty good year last year. By his by standards, average cornerback. Wasn't beaten too badly. They had a pretty good year, but I'm really hyped on Joey Porter. I'm curious to see if the team is going to really be going after him. Like I said, he's a very physical man type corner. Can play zone when needed, but is more of a get your hands up. He's got the size to play against, play that physical style against a lot of these receivers in the league, and he's going to need that because when you look at the receivers in this division, I mean, we've kind of talked about Odell Beckham being welcomed into Baltimore. Cleveland still has Amari Cooper in that wide receiver room. And of course, Cincinnati, arguably has the best wide receiver group in the league. Porter's going to get his chance. He's going to take his lumps, but I think this defense, the back end, they got to add some more pieces. I'll probably be looking, next draft or next free agency period, probably looking at some better linebackers. Eventually you're going to have to move on from Cameron Hayward. He's going to retire. I mean, I like some of the pieces that they brought in as far as like the D line is concerned, but they don't really move the needle. I think this defense is going to have to make the hard transition that the offense has. Like, we're going to have to kind of, start from scratch. You do have a good starting piece with TJ Watt, though. You do have a good starting piece with TJ Watt. Bring in some more youth. Like I said, linebacker would be a area of concern for me if I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. That's just me. That's just me. Give me a sec, y'all. Give me a sec. Okay, I'm back at it. I had to give me a little sip of water. Had me give me a little sip of water. But overall, when you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, when you really break this team down, it's a very young team, a very promising team. I could see, like I said, Pittsburgh was my dark horse pick last year. I'm leaning towards taking Pittsburgh as a dark horse pick this upcoming season. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I mean, like, I can make a case for about 3-4 teams to be my dark horse. Now, do I have Pittsburgh winning the division? No. Could I see Pittsburgh finish last in the division? Yeah. But I think, this team goes back to the winning ways. I think this team ends off the season with a winning record. You may be looking at a 9-8 season, maybe 10-7. If certain things kind of break right, I think this team is very well positioned to be a competitive force in not only in this division but in the AFC as a whole. I think Kenny Pickett is going to be a pretty good quarterback. I'm not going to put him in that echelon of tier 1 or tier 2 at this point. Quarterbacks, but I think Kenny Pickett is kind of in that tier 3, depending on how well he performs this year. Like I said, he's looked real good in camp. He's real good in the preseason action that I've seen him in. It is a lot to like. It is a lot to like with Pittsburgh. I do like Najee Harris. The wide receiver room is what's kind of got me excited for this offense. I think if they're able to kind of air the ball out a little bit more, use Najee Harris in the play action, still giving him his touches. He's very good pass catching, running back for what it's worth. Kind of spread the ball around. You do have very good tight ends. I mean, this offense can be a little special. I'm not going to put them in the top 10, but I think this offense is going to be a lot better than people think. If you haven't been watching Pittsburgh, you haven't been watching what they've been doing as far as putting the pieces together. Tomlin's got him a team now. You just got to make some changes to the defense. I think Pittsburgh will be right back in that conversation for being one of the beasts in the AFC. But we'll see. Right now, if I had to go out on the limb, go on a pick, I say they finish last in the division, and that's not a knock on Tomlin. That's not a knock on the team. It's just a very, very, very talented division. I mean, you have Cincinnati, who I think is the team to beat in the division. I mean, but right behind them is Baltimore. And I think when you look at Cleveland, if you missed that episode, go back, check it out, like, share, subscribe, thumbs up, thumbs down, all that good stuff. When you look at Cleveland, only reason I would put Pittsburgh fourth is because the quarterback. And like I said, I like Pickett, but he's just not them other dudes. He's just not them other dudes. So before we kind of get up out of here, like I said, tomorrow will be a earlier start to the show. I think it'll be 8:00. We're going to start with getting the Cincinnati Bengals team breakdown going, and then I might mix in a little bit of Freestyle Friday for a little bit. Maybe not. I don't know. I got to get prepared for the other stuff. And boy. What a show. As always, I appreciate everybody, taking the time out to listen to little old me. As always, like, share, subscribe. Miss Murphy, if you're catching the replay, I'm getting a little better with the Twitter thing. I'm getting a little better with the Twitter thing. I'm learning the, the repost and all of that kind of stuff. I'm, kind of getting into some groups. Trying to expand the brand. So I'm getting a little bit better. Um, I should pay like one of these kids to do it for me, but hey, it is what it is. All right, so let me kind of get up out of here, man. Appreciate it as always. Like I said, early start time tomorrow. And we'll see where the show kind of goes. We'll see where the show kind of goes. For those that are interested for the other space, I'm working, trying to get together with VP some point next week. And may do a show on Wednesday, and just kind of chop up, some of his life experiences as far as like living abroad and that kind of stuff. Something like a build show. So yeah, trying to work on something like that next week. I, kind of touch base with him. I just want to make sure that he's available to have that. I think that'd be a real dope conversation. But anyway, let me kind of get up out of here. Y'all know the phrase that pays around here. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but every time you learn. And I'm out.